All right. Hello, everyone. This is our reading skills class, or this is our 9th reading skill class. We have done close to we've done 8 classes before, and close to all of these classes we have essentially focused on the reading skill aspect of the VARC section. So just to recap what we've discussed before, or just to revisit what we've done before, we have and about how I focus on the reading process. I'll just mention these few pointers before we get started with the class. So the passage has been taken, today's passage has been taken from The Guardian, and it has around 470 words. Usually in these classes, we choose passages from The Guardian, Eon. We try and stick to sources which are used by CAT. The number of words that we have here taken the passage to be is similar to the length that we'll expect in the exam. So 475, between 450 and 600 words we can expect the passage to be, right? Now, about the reading process and what is expected in the exam, those of you who have attended my classes before will know how I go about the reading process. Those of you who are new may not know this. So I'll repeat the process in short. What I want all of you to keep in mind, though, is the reading process that I'm talking about, right? When it comes to reading skills, the reading process that I'm talking about, it essentially is us developing a certain habit or a method of reading, which is slightly different from the kind of reading that we usually do. And this method or habit of reading that we are going to adopt should be something that we can apply even under pressure. Meaning, like if you have 5 minutes left and you have, let's say, 4 questions to go through, you should go through at least 3 of those questions without losing your ability to be methodical. You should still be methodical. You should still follow that habit. So this is what we are trying to cultivate overall. About the reading process, if you take a look at this passage here, this passage does not have a title. This passage does not have a subtitle. So this passage doesn't tell us what it's about, correct? So the challenge of the exam of the entire VARC section, specifically the RC right now we are focused on, is that we don't have a title or a subtitle. So we don't have any frame of reference. So we have to simplify any passage which is based on any kind of information without having any frame of reference. So any passage means it can have difficult words, it can have new concepts, right? Or it could have, long sentences. The reason why I mentioned difficult words, new concepts, and long sentences is that these are the 3 ways in which the level of difficulty of a passage or a question can be increased or decreased. The number of difficult words, new terms, and long sentences. Please keep a lookout for these, because this will tell you which passage or question is worth solving or not solving, these 3 factors. So we are supposed to simplify any passage, right, which can have difficult words, new concepts, or long sentences. And we should be able to simplify it to the degree that we can evaluate that information. Meaning we should be able to answer, is X better than Y? Which of the following would the author agree with? Which of the following would the author disagree with? Etc. etc. So to answer these type of questions, we need the ability to evaluate this type of information. That is what is being checked. So our ability to simplify and evaluate are being tested, right? Now, what I want us to try to do is reduce any question in VARC, but especially the RC question type. This applies to all questions, especially para summary, para completion, reading comprehension, critical reasoning. Para jumble odd ke liye, it doesn't apply as much. It still applies, but not to the same degree. Okay. So what I want you to remember is that all the questions in VARC can be reduced to this idea, which is about topic A, author says B. Our objective is that we figure out topic A and blank B. So we figure out blank A and blank B from actual words from the passage, right? Not based on descriptions. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find words which will help me fill in blank A. I'm trying to find words which will help me fill in blank B. I expect us to do this for all the questions in VARC, not in the exam, not actively, but especially while practicing, because that tells me that When we see the passage first, it looks all neat to us. Then if I read it once, it becomes khichdi, right? I've discussed this before. If I start answering questions at this stage, then my answers will be like this, which is confused. I want to go to the third stage of reading. The third stage of reading is there are some aspects of the passage which I clearly understand, which tell me the main point of the author, right? Which is blank A and blank B. If we put together, we get the main point of the author. About a certain topic, the author says something specific. So I want us to reach this third stage of reading for anything and everything we read in the exam, which is a stage where we know exactly the main point of the author, right? So this is what I expect all of us to do in our reading process, is to reduce the passage to one specific main point of the author. The more we are able to do this with clarity and accuracy, the better our overall performance in the exam. So I want you to follow this process even in the exam. This writing down what blank A says, writing down what blank B says, this I want you to follow in the class. This I want you to follow when you're practicing at home. When timing is not an issue, so you can actually write down words from the author's words. So what I'm going to do is show you the passage right now. All right. But before we read the passage, I wanted to go through some certain set of instructions. These instructions are applicable to all of us. Some of us may need specific instructions. I expect all of you all to come up with those specific instructions as you proceed in your preparation. So let's look at the general instructions. Ask why and not what. This means that when I read a particular passage, I'm not focused on what is being stated, right? I'm more focused on why information is being given to me. Okay. So focus on why information is given to us, not on what is being stated. Don't retain or memorize. Don't try and memorize the information in the passage. Your mind will naturally remember the location of information. This will be naturally remembered by your mind. If a certain word is mentioned, your mind will know, generally speaking, where it's mentioned. So don't bother about the location of the information. Just all right. So don't bother about the location of the information. Your mind will remember it generally. Reread the sentence first and then consciously simplify. So reread the passage first. You can't simplify this passage the moment you start reading it. We can only apply the simplification process when we are rereading. So consciously simplify when you reread something. What I mean by simplify is everyone will tell you to simplify, and there are different ways to simplify information. When I am talking about simplification, in most cases, I'm asking you to overlook certain words, overlook complicated words, right? But when I say overlook, I mean you should overlook them when you are rereading them, right? So when you're rereading something, leave out the complicated information, focus on the simple bits of information, and develop the objective, ultimate objective here is to develop clarity about the main point. All right. So we develop clarity about the main point. This is what is expected out of us in the reading process. Keep these instructions in mind. I'm going to show you the first passage. I wanted to get started with reading the passage. I'll give you a little bit of time, somewhere around 3 minutes, and then we'll see what we can reduce the passage to, what we think blanks A and blanks B could be, and we'll see how to get better at the reading process. So please start with the passage here. Everyone get started. By the way, I know some of you have a problem with reading on screen. Um, it's a challenge to read on the screen, but the passage is provided in the exam also on the screen. So this is, I expect all of you to get used to at some stage to reading on the screen. Please continue. I'll just wait for a minute longer. All right. So I'm going to start discussing the passage. Some of you may still be reading, so you can please pause the telecast and you can watch it. You can continue, join us later. So I'll just continue with this analysis. Those of you who are still reading can pause and then rejoin the class later. So what I want all of you all to try and do is try and follow the process that I'm going to describe here. Ask why, not what. Don't retain. Reread the first sentence and develop clarity about the main point. So try and follow the process that I'm going to apply. My description of the process might seem time consuming, but try and follow what I'm trying to achieve with the reading process. With the first paragraph, I want to understand first is create context. What is this passage generally about? And then understand why the first paragraph is given. The author initially starts with, and this focus that I'm showing when I'm marking certain words or when I'm highlighting certain words, I'm highlighting those words that I've stressed upon in my reread, right? I've reread, and in that reread, I've simplified the sentence. When I simplify, that means I'm overlooking a lot of information. We'll try and do that, right? Let's look at the first paragraph here. The author is talking about uh, what quality went to form a man of achievement. So, to become someone who is of achievement, the author is saying something called negative capability, right? So about this man of achievement, something called negative capability is the quality that we need. What is negative capability? Negative capability is the ability to hold complexity and ambiguity in mind without requiring a clear resolution. So man of achievement has negative capability, which is the ability to hold complexity and ambiguity in the mind. We are told that this is required for greatness in any endeavor, right? This is the mark of greatness in any endeavor. Now, in the second paragraph, so I know why the first paragraph is given. First paragraph is given, the why of the first paragraph is to tell us to be someone of achievement. That means they have negative capability, which means they can hold complexity and ambiguity in their mind. The second paragraph tells us the author is now using Keats and Samuel Taylor to show something, which is this conversation or this criticism of Samuel Taylor by Keats. Why is this information being given to us? Because the author here is saying a person like Samuel Taylor would fail to discern a fine, isolated verisimilitude caught from the penetralium of mystery. So suppose ये line पूरा bouncer गया, कुछ समझ में ही नहीं आया. Right? So what do? I use this understanding that I'm going to overlook that information, and I instead reread as Samuel Taylor was incapable of remaining content with half knowledge. So he did not have the ability to hold complexity and ambiguity in the mind. Samuel Taylor Coleridge was incapable of remaining content with half knowledge. The argument is that, now always remember this, if a part of the passage, a part of the paragraph is explaining something simply, we should reread that part. The argument is that fine grained. Now, since I didn't understand verisimilitude, I'm saying, like, suppose we didn't know what verisimilitude means, then we simplify something. How do I simplify this sentence? Fine grained information, what I'm estimating all of this delicate verisimilitude as, fine grained information can be captured from the most mysterious context. So the author is saying that we should have the ability to hold complexity in our mind and ambiguity in our mind, which allows fine grained information to be captured in mysterious context. The author says that there is this kind of fine grained information in fiction, and it's there in all kinds of art, but it's not there in an official report, right? So this kind of idea, which is capturing some hidden detail, is present in fiction, is present in art, it's not present in an official report. Then we get two examples, example 1, example 2. Always pay attention about why the author is giving us information. Example 1 and example 2 are both given to us to show that there can be some verisimilitude. Verisimilitude, by the way, means some truth, right? But this first example and second example are given to say that there can be some truth in fiction and art, right? Which is not there if you simply stress, if you simply stress on getting information, right? If you simply stress on getting knowledge, then you might miss out on these finer details, these fine grained details you might miss out. All right. The last paragraph makes it clear to us. Negative capability is not a quality often associated with dominant political economy of today. So today people don't associate negative capability with today's politics. It's because today's politics wants a concrete answer. It wants a bold assertion. It wants a definite action. The author is overall in agreement with this. This is quite natural. But the author says the other fugitive qualities, meaning these qualities which are difficult to capture, such as ambiguity, imagination, and complexity, these are also essential. These qualities are also essential. Few of our current prominent politicians engage deeply with art. In pursuit of truth, more of them should. Look at the last line, in pursuit of truth. So we can estimate what verisimilitude is. In pursuit of truth, more of them should follow art. So the main point of the author is essentially that Someone of negative capability, someone who has negative capability, can hold complex information in their mind. Someone with negative capability can hold complex information in their mind. All right. Let's see the next one. Okay. So to just a moment. All right. So I've marked here what we could put into blanks A and B. If you notice, I wanted to uh, reduce the passage to about topic A, author says B, right? And we've reduced the passage to about topic A, author says B in this case, right? We've reduced it like this, which is about topic negative capability. We know the topic of the author is this idea of negative capability. The author says it is the ability to embrace uncertainty and ambiguity, which was the first paragraph of the author, hold complexity and ambiguity in the mind. So, negative capability is the ability to embrace complexity without needing a clearer resolution. So, author says this should not be always about getting a clear resolution, such as here, without requiring a clear resolution. So far, exactly what the author said in the first paragraph. Marking greatness in any field. This is also stated here, greatness in any field, and allowing us to perceive truths that might otherwise be overlooked. So, allow us to perceive truth, allow us to perceive verisimilitude that we should allow ourselves to do instead of simply looking for knowledge. If, like Samuel Taylor, we simply search for knowledge, then that's not good according to this author. According to this author, we should have the ability to hold ambiguity in our mind, to hold complexity in our mind, so that we can perceive truths which might be overlooked by. This is putting these two statements together. We can say this captures the main point of the author. Now, what I've done this before in the classes, so I'll just repeat that. What I mean by this captures the main point is that this is the reason this we can add some more words to it, we can remove some words from it, but overall this is the reason why the author took up our time. I want all of you all to read why this information is given to us by simply reading what is marked in green here, right? Read only words marked in green. I'll just wait for a moment. All right. So if you read this, to form a man of achievement, we need negative capability. Negative capability is the ability to hold complexity and ambiguity in the mind without requiring a clear resolution. This is a mark of true greatness in any field. All right. Now, fine-grained Fine-grained, delicate verisimilitude can be captured from the most apparently mysterious context. Verisimilitude to be discovered in fiction and art of all kinds. So we can find fine-grained information. We can find fine-grained information in the most mysterious context, such as fiction and art, right? So we can find really fine information. We are given examples. The first novel is an example to show politics can and does reside in arts. Politics can stay in arts. Second example is also a way of saying how society influences or social politics influences arts. All right. Now, before we go to the questions, just one moment. Okay. So before we go to the questions, there's a set of instructions that I want you to follow as well, which are these. These instructions I want you to use always to ensure that you come up with the right answer. One is always use a specific word or phrase for a specific decision. There'll be four options. In most questions, two options will be eliminated by close to 80-90% of us. We'll all know why both these options are incorrect. Then we'll be confused with two options, option A and option B. At this stage, to determine between options A and B, which is the better choice and why, we need to make sure. All right, we need to make sure if we're comparing between options A and B, which of these phrases makes it incorrect or correct. And these decisions should be based on specific words or phrases which make them acceptable or unacceptable. To determine whether an option and its specific words are acceptable or unacceptable, we have to go back to the passage. We can't do this from memory. We have to check word by word, and we have to use the structure of the passage. For example, we should know these two are examples. These two novels given here are examples, and these examples are used in a specific way. All right. Let's see the first question here. Please go through this. This is the first question. Type in your answers. Use the instructions that I've discussed so far. All right. So let me discuss this question. The following is a list of outcomes of practical application of negative capacity the author would likely agree with, except. Let me first talk about what the question is asking of us, right? The following is a list of outcomes of practical application. We'll put this first half of the statement till here. We'll put this aside, right? Let's not worry about this right now. Let's just look at negative capacity the author would likely agree with, except. So we are looking for interpretations of negative capacity that the author would likely agree with, except. Remember, these except type questions usually take time. And the reason is that means the word except means three of these are valid answers. We aren't looking for these three. We are looking for the one which is an invalid answer, right? We are looking for the author disagreeing with one interpretation of negative capacity, right? The author will say that this is not the version of negative capacity that I spoke about in the passage. All right. So let's look at option A. A leader may refrain from providing immediate solutions encouraging others to tolerate ambiguity and explore solutions. We know from the passage where negative capacity, by the way, was discussed, our ability to answer this question and these four options is mostly going to determine based on how well we understood this part, which is negative capability is the ability to hold ambiguity and complexity in the mind without requiring a clearer resolution. This is what our answer would depend upon. If you look at option A leader may refrain from providing immediate solutions, encouraging others to tolerate ambiguity. This is right. This is negative capacity, according to the author. This is a good thing. Two, a writer may craft narratives that lack clear resolutions. So again, they lack clear resolutions, compelling readers to engage with multiple interpretations. This means the reader should be okay with requiring with ambiguity. The reader should be okay with complexity. So second statement about the writer also shows us negative capacity in the right light. The fourth sentence, an artist may embrace conflicting perspectives in their work, allowing complex truths to emerge without resolution. If you notice, again, embrace conflicting perspectives. So hold complexity and ambiguity in the mind, allowing complex truths to emerge. So allowing finer truths, finer verisimilitude to be captured. So option 4 is also valid. It's showing to us exactly what negative capacity is. Option 3 is invalid. A scientist may disregard empirical evidence in favor of intuition. Believing uncertainty leads to greater discovery. See, firstly, the first half of option 3, which is a scientist may disregard empirical evidence in favor of intuition. If you notice here, we are told in the last paragraph, fact and reason are essential to challenge dogma, but also are other qualities of ambiguity and imagination. So we can't say a scientist may disregard empirical evidence. This is not the negative capacity that the author is talking about in favor of intuition. And believing uncertainty leads to greater discovery. Uncertainty leading to greater discovery is valid from here, right? Verisimilitude can be captured from the most mysterious context. But I can't say that a scientist may disregard empirical evidence. This is not negative capacity. Fact and reason are essential, right? So the correct answer here is option 3. All right. So I hope this is clear. Let's try the next question from this passage. Please get started with this. All right. Please continue. All right, let's try and solve this question. Which of the following assert verisimilitude is the author? Pehle to we want to figure out what the author has said about verisimilitude. And Expect, by the way, in the exam, when something difficult is stated, such as penetralium of mystery, we don't know, suppose, what this means. So if something difficult is stated in the passage, is discussed in a confusing way, expect a question to be created based on that area. So when a question is made based on that area, our task is to revisit the passage and check word by word. Right? Our task is to go back to the passage and check word by word. Right? So let's try and go back to the passage and figure out what verisimilitude is talking about. We are told this Samuel Taylor, in this case, he was incapable of remaining content with half knowledge. So Samuel Taylor was incapable of holding complexity and ambiguity in his mind, according to the author. Right? The argument is that fine-grained, delicate verisimilitude, so fine-grained information, can be captured from the most apparently mysterious context. So verisimilitude is us talking about capturing fine-grained information from mysterious contexts, right? There is verisimilitude in fiction and art. So we can find fine-grained information in fiction and art. All right. So now that we have gone back to the passage and checked, we'll go through the options. Option 1 talks of verisimilitude relies on accurate representation, ignoring emotional resonance or subjective interpretations entirely. Right? We're looking for verisimilitude, have the underlying assumption of verisimilitude. So verisimilitude relies on accurate representation, ignoring emotional resonance or subjective interpretations entirely. This ignoring subjective interpretations is invalid. According to the author, we are actually, verisimilitude is about us holding complexity and ambiguity in our minds. It's us trying to find fine information from mystery, right? So if we want to find fine information, if we want to find fine meaning particularly detailed information from mystery, right, from a mysterious context, this means that you cannot ignore subjective interpretations. This means that you cannot say broader truths are insignificant. In the second option, you notice true verisimilitude emerges from meticulous detail. This may be true, rendering broader truths insignificant. Broader truths are insignificant. This is invalid, right? Then we won't be able to hold complexity and ambiguity in the mind. Let's look at 3. Verisimilitude necessitates conventional realism. This, we don't know what conventional realism is about. Dismissing imaginative or abstract approaches to storytelling. And again, we are dismissing imagination. The author said imagination is important here, right? Dismissing imagination is invalid. We are left with option 4. The pursuit of knowledge, which is, if you notice, Samuel Taylor's pursuit of knowledge can limit artistic expression, constraining creativity within rigid boundaries. So the author is saying, option D is the right choice here. The author is saying that the pursuit of knowledge, which is, I'll just mark it here, which is this idea of Samuel Taylor pursuing knowledge. If you're simply pursuing knowledge, what it does is it makes you ignore the fine-grained information that you could get from mysterious contexts. You end up ignoring the fine-grained information you would get from mysterious contexts. So therefore, you're not looking for fine-grained information in fiction, and you're not looking for fine-grained information in art. So what happens is the pursuit of knowledge can limit artistic expression because you're not looking for those in fiction and art. The pursuit of knowledge can constrain creativity because you're simply focused on fact and reason and you're not focused on ambiguity, imagination, and complexity. Right? So it constrains creativity because of its rigid boundaries. So pursuit of knowledge can limit because of its rigid boundaries. Option D is the underlying assumption. Pursuit of knowledge has rigid, excessive. Option 4 could have been made much easier if we added excessive or sole pursuit. Just for me to explain to you, right? So if the words excessive or sole pursuit were added, then we could say that this is what the author is definitely going to agree with. This is what the author is definitely going to state about verisimilitude, which is that simply pursuing knowledge will not give us these finer details that are mentioned and discussed here. All right, let's try and solve the next one. Okay, please start with this. So let's start with this question. Each of the following inferences about the dominant political economy of today are valid except, right? Pehle to you'll have to find where dominant political economy is discussed. I told you already that we want to go back to the passage, check, and then answer. We don't want to answer questions based on memory alone, because that would lead to a lot of problems. So first, figure out where dominant political economy is discussed. It's discussed here, correct? Our mind usually remembers the location of information, so most of us would remember where this is discussed. So the following inferences about this are valid except. So three inferences with regards to dominant political economy are made, which are valid. One is invalid. We want to find the invalid inference. Okay. Now, about this dominant political economy, which is discussed here, the author says this dominant political economy has a tendency to find concrete answer, tendency to make the bold assertion, tendency to have definite action, correct? And the author says this dominant political economy, which has this tendency for concrete answer, is not that good, especially if you want to focus on ambiguity, especially if you want to focus on imagination, especially if you want to focus on complexity, right? So we know that the dominant political economies actually needs improvement according to the author. Let's go through each option here. If you notice, option one says it may place facts, right here, it may place facts before nuanced, compelling, diverse narratives in its quest for definite. If you notice, dominant political economy wants the concrete answer. It wants the bold assertion. So it wants facts. It wants facts and reasons. It may place facts before compelling diverse narratives, right? So option one is actually a valid inference. It's not our answer. Option one is something that the dominant political economy can do. It can place facts before nuance. It may oversimplify complicated issues. We notice they want the concrete answer, right? The definite plan of action. So it may oversimplify complicated issues, leading to solutions which are narrow in scope and creativity. See, if you notice, imagination is associated with something else. Imagination is not associated with dominant political economy. Imagination is associated with other fugitive qualities. Correct? So if I oversimplify complicated issues, then I'm narrowing myself in scope and creativity. So option 2 is a valid inference about dominant political economy. Let's look at option 4. It may increasingly prioritize factual veracity. So again, it will prioritize facts. We are told here of prioritizing facts. It may increasingly prioritize facts, thus suppressing flexible interpretations of reality. So it will prioritize facts over flexible interpretation. So 1, 2, and 4. Options 1, 2, and 4 are valid inferences. What is not a valid inference is option 3. Option 3 tells us it may prioritize vague ideologies over concrete strategies, thus undermining effective governance and accountability. Right? So it may prioritize vague things over concrete things. This is actually the opposite of dominant political economy. Dominant political economy actually prioritizes the concrete and the bold assertion. So it may prioritize vague ideologies over concrete strategies is invalid, right? And that's why 3 is the right choice. We're looking for an invalid inference. Option 3 is the right choice. Let's try the next question. This is the last question. All right. Please get started with this. So let me talk about the question for a moment. I know some of you are still going through the options. What I want to do is give you a certain clue about the question, what it's trying to ask, so maybe it can improve your answers a little. So let's take a look at what the question is asking us. The question is saying which assertion best encapsulates the essence of the author's perspective. So essence of the author's perspective मतलब ये main point पूछ रहा है अपने से. Author का main point क्या है? If you remember about topic A, author says B, right? We had filled in those blanks. This question is about those blanks. Is asking us the essence of the author's perspective on negative capability. नेगेटिव कैपेबिलिटी को सिंपली यहाँ डिफाइन कर रखा है, थोड़े कॉम्प्लिकेटेड वे में यहाँ डिफाइन कर रखा है, और थोड़े और डिटेल्ड वे में यहाँ डिफाइन कर रखा है. ठीक है. सो एसेंस ऑफ ऑथर्स पर्सपेक्टिव ऑन नेगेटिव कैपेबिलिटी एंड इट्स इम्प्लीकेशंस फॉर टुडेज पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी. तो आज के पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी पे, डोमिनेंट पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी पे क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा. सो वी आर लुकिंग फॉर द मेन पॉइंट ऑफ द ऑथर इन अ स्लाइटली डिफरेंट वे. I'll just wait again. Please go through the options. We are looking for the main point of the author in a slightly different way. All right. All right. So let's see which of these could be the right answer. Let's look at option 4. Simplistic interpretations of complex issues reveal the critical flaw in the framework of modern governance. We can't say the essence of the author's perspective is that there is a critical flaw in the framework of modern governance, right? We can't say that this is the essence of the author's perspective on negative capability, that there is one critical flaw. So D has a factual error. Let's look at option 3, the rejection of ambiguity. The author was talking about negative capability as the ability to hold complexity and ambiguity. This is saying the rejection of ambiguity. So already a problem. Leads to a superficial grasp of reality. In fact, if you notice, the author says that ambiguity will help us capture finer details. Rejection of ambiguity leads to superficial grasp of reality. I can't say that if I reject ambiguity, however, I'll have only a superficial grasp. If you notice, fact and reason are opposed to ambiguity. Fact and reason are essential according to the author, right? So I can't simply say the outcome would be my grasp on reality will become superficial. So 3 is invalid, right, for saying superficial grasp of reality. Statement 2 says rigid adherence to factual accuracy diminishes the complexities. So far till here, statement 2 is valid. Rigid adherence to factual accuracy diminishes the complexities inherent in all political discourse. The author is not saying that there are complexities present in all political discourse. This is an invalid option. This is not the essence of the author's perspective. Author's perspective is stated in option 1. Option 1 says embracing uncertainty. Embracing uncertainty is the ability to hold complexity and ambiguity, fosters a richer understanding. So, fine grained verisimilitude can be captured, fosters a richer understanding of truths, right? In pursuit of truths, often obscured by definitive narratives. Option 1 is the correct answer. It's saying that holding complexity gives us the ability to understand and get fine grained information even from the most mysterious context, right? So uncertainty helps us get knowledge which we wouldn't have otherwise gotten if we simply focused on fact. Option 1 is the correct choice. All right. So this is us discussing the passage in detail. This is the process that we usually follow. I discuss the reading process. I tell you how to go about the reading process by showing you the main point of the author and telling you how I overlook or simplify the passage. Then we go to the options, and then I tell students about how I take decisions about solving the options and how each decision is backed by a certain word which tells me an option is acceptable or unacceptable. So overall, I describe the topic in a very methodical way. This methodical way of thinking and solving is what I expect all of you all to learn from these classes and then apply when you're actually solving in the exam. So that's it for today. With this, I'm bringing today's class to an end. And I hope the passage was useful. To those of you who find these type of classes useful, do send us messages in the chat. Those of you who want us to add or make changes to the classes also do send us information in the comment section. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I'll see you in the next class. All right. Thank you, everyone.